probably in on this meeting. I know that there are 2 town halls tomorrow for staff in the city libraries. If you have questions that you want to submit ahead of that, please send them to Kathy Kafta Sims. If you want to message her here in the Zoom meeting, you can do that, or you can email her, and I'm sure you have her email memorized. So that's the first thing. Second thing is not everyone is comfortable with a lot of chatter in chat. So if you do need to post something in chat, please keep it focused on whatever topics we're dealing with. And it's likely that we will not respond to chat because sometimes there's a lot going on there, but useful for me to read and just to kind of know what's on your mind. But don't feel that you have to fill up the chat, and don't think that everything you say is going to be responded to. So with that said, I had promised Kim Schellinger that she could go first. Kim is the new executive director of the Friends of the Central Library, and came on board, I think, after everyone was working from home.
Yes, thanks, Jill. I'll be really brief. I took over for Joan Brooks literally March 2nd. So I shadowed her a little bit, and then now we've been working from home. So I just wanted to update you on where we are. The pause kind of forced us to move our spring series, the 3 authors that we had scheduled for spring, into summer. We thought that we were being proactive and moved them into June, July, and August. But now we're faced with the opportunity of that not happening as well. So our board recently met and voted on the option to present them virtually. So right now we're in the process of potentially partnering with WCNY and some other platforms to kind of deliver those remaining 3 authors to our subscribers, and kind of looking to the future in this kind of new world. That's it's difficult. We're probably phase 4 of reopening in large groups, and initially, getting over, what the county may mandate, but then also getting over subscribers' feelings of anxiety of meeting in a public place, kind of thing. So, just wanted to update you on that. With our first speaker is Paula McLean, and she's scheduled for June 30th. We switched Marlon James to July 28th, and then Tayari Jones is scheduled for August 11th. So that's all I really had to say. Just wanted to update you that we're moving forward, and I look forward to working with you all.
Kim, This is Ed Coach, and welcome. I hope to meet with you in person at some point. I got files and files of focal stuff from my years on the board. But my question is, what are you doing about the new season? Normally it would have been at the March meeting that you make the announcement. I presume you've got authors picked, but probably a lot up in the air now.
We did actually contract with authors. I had to submit, as part of our bylaws, I had to submit a new budget on May 1st. So I presented the board with 2 scenarios. One, moving forward with all 6 authors starting in September. And then the second budget that I presented considered an abbreviated season of just 4 speakers, and starting in February through May. So that's still being considered. We would take those authors that we contracted with, the 2 that if we moved with the abbreviated version, we'd move them into the following year's season. So those are kind of the options, and we hope to have a conclusion on that and to announce that within the next couple months.
I would think that you'll have difficulty at the moment raising money with all given the state of the economy. So If I can be helpful down the road, we look forward to talking to you.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly, I mean, it's not ideal to kind of take that drastic measure, but it's exactly what you said. Our timing right now, just to solicit funding and advertising just wasn't matching up. So hopefully if they decide to do an abbreviated, that'll give us a little bit more time to weather the storm, so to speak. So thank you.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Yes, Kim, Bob Manning. Just so that June, July, and August lectures will be virtual. That's been decided.
Correct.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Great things to our community.
Thanks.
Kim, thank you. And I'll just add that I do look forward to seeing you in person at a future meeting.
Likewise. Thank you all.
You're welcome. Christian?
Hi, folks. Well, lot going on at the library. Things are not usual. There is pretty much nothing that is usual at the library at this time. So just to give the board a little update, I think that you guys should have some of these planning documents. I will send them out to the board again in case you don't have the latest iteration of them. Staff leadership began to come in on Monday. And that was principally branch leadership and administrative leadership. General staff started coming in today. So staff have been in the library starting today. We are rolling out with curbside pickup on Tuesday. It's going to be great. We have a lot of policies in place. I see Meg Van Patten is here. Beeville is coming along with us on this journey. We are in great company on that. It's going to be great. One of the things that we are doing, and I want to throw a lot of credit to our PR department, is the work that they have done, which now that we are live on, you will be able to see the librarian's choice option on the menu. So the deal is, when you're getting books via pickup, you can either go in and do all of your own reserves just like you always did. So I want this book, this book, this book, this book. But that really takes the entire concept of browsing out of it, and that kind of takes a lot of the joy out of it, because we all want to be exposed to some new stuff as we are looking at our as we're looking at stuff, as we're looking at library stuff. So what we were able to do is create, Kathy and her team created these kind of menus, and you go in and you put it in for music or for for books or for magazines, and then a librarian will curate a blind bag for you. So kind of a selection list, and put it in this brown paper bag, and then it's there waiting ready for you when you come for pickup. So that's kind of a nice value added. That's going to be really fun. Every library currently has carved out spaces for essentially a book quarantine parking lot. I was walking Jill through some of the procedures on this. So we have a pretty straightforward procedure. We are working off of a 1-week quarantine, which is a little more aggressive than a lot of the kind of standard recommendations are, but we're choosing to go a little more aggressive with the idea that if we can compact it later on, that's great, but it's always harder to expand a time of people waiting for delivery than it is to compact it, right? So if we get better news and we can shorten it, then we will shorten that time and do great. Whereas if we get word later on that a given period of time was not long enough, then we have the impression that the library is acting in a way that is unsafe for staff and for users, and then also now all of a sudden reserves take that much longer to fulfill. So materials come in, they go onto a book truck or a bin or whatever, but we'll use a book truck as an example. They go onto a book truck. From the moment the last book goes onto that book truck, a heavy-duty garbage bag goes down over it. At that point, from the time that that garbage bag goes over, from the moment of the last book, a sheet is put on that kind of encapsulated thing or semi-encapsulated thing that says quarantine starting, May 20th, 4:20 p.m. Quarantine ends, May 27th, 4:20 p.m. And then they are parked in the quarantine area and left there for a week. This is actually a lot more effective than trying to wipe any surfaces down. You just give it time and everything on it will die. Paper, actual paper, COVID-19 or coronavirus breaks down fairly quickly from what people are seeing, and that's due to the texture of the material. If you go down to a microscopic level, paper remains quite rough, and that allows the surface to break down the fatty outer covering of the virus. Where we get into problems is when it hits solid surfaces like the Mylar wrapping on a library book or a DVD cover or a CD cover. And on those, there's nothing. It just sticks to it and it's there. So that's kind of the thoughts behind that. Staff have been issued cloth face masks. We are getting in gloves. We are getting in hand sanitizer. We need more of that. We are definitely short on that stuff, and we are working very hard to get more of that in. But it is in the process, and we're exerting all efforts that we can, both within the county and within the larger business community. The breath guards are in. They are currently here. We have the ones that we sourced for our members that are going out to the members this week. We will begin installing them in our locations over the next 2 weeks as well. This will give us time to prepare the space and get the space set and ready before we have any contact with the public. Same thing goes for stanchions, gaff tape. We don't have those in place yet. However, they are on order. What we also do have though is we also have the first shipment of brown paper bags. So all of the materials available on curbside are given to you in your own brand new brown paper bag. I'm sure that has some comment about censorship in libraries or whatever. But that is what's happening. We're going to eventually brand these things, and eventually it'll be an Onondaga County, an OCPL bag, and it'll look really nice and that kind of stuff. At this point, given the time, given the turnaround that we need to do on sourcing them, it's just a brown paper bag. And that's kind of it. I mean, the brown paper bags are in. We're getting in the materials. People are working really hard. I've been super impressed by the libraries. I have done a personal spot check on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, on 6 of the libraries. Myself, I've had Dawn and other senior managers checking the remainders. I will also be doing another sweep tomorrow as I best can around the town hall meeting. There is going to be 2 town hall meetings with me for staff. One is for branch staff, one is for central staff. Everything is going in through Kathy's office just for the questions to be collected. So a lot of the questions are going to be the same, and I can't follow chat while I'm doing these things. I have to focus too much on what's around me. So we're trying to make sure that all the questions have a chance to get aired, and we don't have to worry about me missing something in chat. Questions, concerns, thoughts, issues?
Hi, Christian, this is Ginny.
Hey, Ginny.
Maybe you'll know more after the town halls,
Mhm.
but have you had any employees who have refused to come in or who have expressed serious concerns about coming in?
We have, and we're in the process of addressing those on a case-by-case basis. So, it is certainly people's right to have these concerns, and it is our right to try and work with them towards coming to a resolution that works for all the parties involved. I did want to also give a quick shout out to our member libraries who've been great through this process. They have a much harder time of this in a lot of ways than we do because of their structure. And I think we've discussed this a bit in the past, but just to reiterate, because of their structure, they cannot just open because they want to. We are opening because we were given an instruction by the county. I'm very happy to fulfill that instruction, and we are being diligent in doing so. The other libraries are not in a position to do that because they're still beholden under the governor's executive order. And until such time as we get better information from the governor, that is what they need to do. Now, MEG is a little bit different because MEG is another government agency, so she has more flexibility. Some libraries are starting to open up in phase 1. They are exerting their flexibility, but we should be very cognizant of the fact that each of our member libraries is facing unique issues in their community, and I think that we need to be very patient and supportive of them as they try to address these incredibly difficult issues that we are working out right now. Nobody is dragging their feet. OCPL and Syracuse is literally the first large system opening up in the Northeast at this point. There are smaller systems, Poughkeepsie is doing some curbside, and there have been some, mom and pop libraries, as it were, some very small, half a dozen staff in rural community libraries that have been doing curbside. But for a system of our size, for a big 5 city, for a city of over 100,000 population, we are literally the first in the Northeast to be addressing these issues. So no disrespect to anybody, everybody is working very hard. Everybody at OCPL, all of the community libraries are easily 2 to 4 weeks ahead of anybody else out there right now. So I think it's important to bear that in mind.
Christian, have you had any staff members test positive?
Nope. Not that it's been reported to me, and I have not had any of that come to my attention. We are also doing, of course, we're going to be taking people's temperatures. We're waiting on the thermometers. Right now, we're asking people to self-report. If you're running a temperature, we really don't want you here. And we're asking people to self-report that until we have the infrastructure in place. After that, it will be supervisors who will be taking everybody's temperature at the beginning of each workday. If you are in excess of 100.3 degrees, then you take an admin day and you go home until such time as your 2 days fever clear. I think it's either 2 or 3 days clear of fever. And that's in the policy. I just don't have it at my fingertips.
Okay.
Sam?
Christian, can you just talk a little bit more about the thermometer issue? Does the emergency management department have access to them? Was there thought about delaying any of this until, I fully trust that staff will do what they're supposed to do, but if they don't, or don't know how to use a thermometer appropriately, or don't have access to one, that's concerning for.
Yeah, all of these are completely accurate. The thermometers, we've been really on top of this. So the thermometers have been on order since last week. This is very much a distribution issue. The county has sourced a number of thermometers as kind of emergency measure thermometers. We are currently trying to source a number of those as needed. And this problem should be resolved by end of week, middle of next week at the latest. So in the interim, in lack of a better response, this is kind of what we're doing. When the time comes, then yeah, you come to work, yo, hey Sam, ding, sorry man, you're great, sorry man, you're hot, and then we go from there. And I get the concern. Everything, every time I try and talk to librarians right now, I talk to them about how far behind they are on the curve. And so we were a little bit behind on the curve, which is why we don't have all of this in hand right now. But of course, we also are very fast on the front end of the curve on when our resolution comes. So, we're seeking out the thermometers. Hopefully, I will know by Friday whether or not the county can fulfill those or not. And my expectation is, as I say, Wednesday of next week at the latest for standard opening procedures. Also, I've been talking to Dane about expanding our Wi-Fi hub. So I would love to have a follow-up conversation with you, Sam, about possibly seeing if we couldn't start expanding a larger Wi-Fi network across the city using the libraries as hubs.
Awesome, that's great.
Christian, so piggybacking on Sam's question, if a person doesn't own a thermometer, and I went decades without one, does that person just stay home, or do they, at this point, or just guess?
I'm not at the level of policing people at this point. People are employees, they are adults, they are reasonable adults. If you ask a reasonable adult, please take your temperature, and they do not do so, I am not going to their house and putting it in their tongue for them. We're just not doing that. So my hope is that people will respond, and hopefully over the next couple of days, it'll be a moot point anyway, because we'll have the thermometers. But I think that it's very, very important, and I'm trying to build this into all of our planning, that we have circuit breakers throughout this process, and that there are certain things that absolutely will stop progress. But if we try and have micro circuit breakers, we will not make progress. We will not get momentum. And at this point, we simply need the momentum to move forward.
Yeah.
So the question is, if someone doesn't have a thermometer,
Go buy one. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to respond to that.
Okay.
You've been tasked with you're also tasked with wearing shoes to work. I don't buy your shoes. So, I mean, I hope that people would resolve that. If people are unable to source a thermometer, I will of course help them find the thermometer. If this is a large scale issue, we will address that. It has not come up.
Okay. Bob?
Yeah, Christian, has organizations like ALA and NYLA been I'll say a wealth of ideas?
NYLA has been useful. Absolutely nothing else has been of any use, including the State Library and Pallisto.
Okay.
And so, Bob, in the email today, you will see the email message from the state librarian, Lauren Moore, that was sent out on the Nyline email list. And the state library sees their role as not creating policy to be implemented across New York State, but supporting individual libraries, knowing that each individual library is different.
Yeah. Okay.
I've been in contact with the state library constantly over the last 3 weeks. I'm in very regular contact with the executive director of NYLA, and I'm on Pallisto calls, seems like 2-3 times a week at this point. But honestly, the best practices happening in America right now are happening at the Onondaga County Public Library, because we are about 2 weeks ahead of the curve on the rest of the conversation.
That's good.
Other questions from the board?
I have one more point of privilege, if I can share it, Jill. I don't know if you guys know David Lankies or are familiar with his work. He's probably the leading theoretician in public libraries working in the field today. Jill, no disrespect, but
Who used to be on this board, I think.
yes.
Yeah.
He has reviewed all of our documentation. He has used it as the basis for some other conversations. He is sharing it with libraries in South Carolina now. We have the full imprimatur of David Lankies on our planning documents. He is, if anything, rather protective of them at this point. So I'm not just the only one saying that we are literally ahead of the curve. David's using our stuff to assist other people in the state of South Carolina, like today, like right now.
That speaks well.
That's wonderful, Christian. Again, I mentioned this last time. This has done so much to improve the stature and the impression in the library world of OCPL, and we are incredibly grateful to you for that.
It is an incredible group of people who have worked on this. The fact that we have been meeting twice a week, leadership has been in conversation, there has been a regular flow back and forth. I have never worked so closely with a union in my life and enjoyed it so much. I am humbled by all of it. And Sam, thank you for bringing some talent to the table, man. My gosh. Oh, yeah. Anyway, this is an incredible thing. I mean, I made a comment the other day on social media that OCPL on Wednesday was the best thing in libraries in America. And I believe that very strongly. People were brave, they were courageous, they worked hard. I am humbled by this experience.
Thank you.
Those experiences.
Any other questions from the board for Christian?
How was the effort going to keep the libraries clean?
It's going very well. We have had to lose a lot of our maintenance staff because of retirements, and that is not. We have these guys fighting tooth and nail to spend every possible day they still can before they complete out their time. So we have some very, very dedicated custodial and maintenance workers. Right now we are a little bit short. So right now we have them sharing, we have 1 per 2. So we have 1 per 2 libraries, but that's going to be okay because of course the footprint of what they're cleaning is smaller. And we are in the process of looking at replacing John Miletis, who is the current head of it. John has been doing a killer time. It has been amazing working with him. I'm hoping that Tony will move into his spot because he has a lot of institutional wisdom and a lot of knowledge. We're actually working with a company, and I believe this is through the county, which will do like a fumigation, essentially, like an aerosol fumigation. I know that that's at least once prior to significant reopening. I believe that that may be on a fairly regular basis. And I'll be waiting to see kind of some of those details as those come down. That is, of course, run by Archie. That's not really my department per se. Having said that, I've had a couple of conversations with him. The conversations have been great. They are very invested in this, and they're very aware of the fact that our needs are wildly different from the Civic Center.
Christian,
you.
one other question. Did anything ever go forward on that Shakespeare collaboration that we talked about at a previous meeting?
Oh yeah, it's happening right now. They do an hour of Shakespeare programming every Thursday at 2:00 live off of our Facebook Live. They are currently in the process of expanding that to twice a week. So they will do programming at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and 2 p.m. on Thursdays. They've been doing kind of a fun little grab bag of different themes and different snippets. They have a lot of plays that they've been using for high schools and stuff that are kind of abridged so that they're an hour of just like nice, tight, like fighting, love, drama, death. And then it's Shakespeare, like the highlights. So they're going to be presenting that. And actually, I need to follow up with Christina at some point. I don't see her in here, but I'll be following up with her because they're interested in possibly using, so Cara Luddy, if you guys don't know her, she's all of our communications people have been incredible through this. Cara has like taken this aspect of things. She is now the web guru for Shakespeare in the Park that they're getting for free, and she's really killing it. So with her work, they've kind of designed a way to possibly streamline their entire season, their entire summer season through the library website. And that's something that we're kind of looking at about how that partnership might go and might go forward. Long answer to a short question. Yeah, Jenny, we are tight right now. We are very, very tight with Shakespeare in the Park. When you see their poster for this season, for the summer season, we are prominently listed as a sponsor for the season.
Anything else for Christian from the board?
Christian, just a note, I saw Amazon was going up and down their aisles, their warehouses with ultraviolet lights on wheels, just disinfecting all their packages with ultraviolet. That seemed like pretty interesting idea to deal with the aisles.
It is. It's been a conversation for a while. One of the principal problems with the ultraviolet light is that you have to have a lot of containment over the light itself. And the problem is that if there's a shadow, no light gets in there, no sterilization. Because the bookshelves are all over the place, because there's like the edge of a book and then there'll be pages that will come down, it's difficult to apply it. There was talk in a couple of academic libraries were looking at these at the point of actually having a book unit that would like, you would actually feed it into this tray and it would go through and be like hit with high levels of ultraviolet light. Ultimately, the library community even didn't want to touch that one because of the shadows, because of the false positives. The general rule of thumb across the profession, and something that I'm very strongly sticking to, is that if we know that it will die after a certain period of time, let's just let it die. Let's not get worried about, did I miss a spot? Let's not have staff be exposed to things. Let's not spend a lot of money. Let's put things on a truck, put a garbage bag over it, stick it in a corner, and let this stuff die of old age, and then bring it back. It's a cool idea. I mean, I love it. There's amazing stuff out there about this stuff right now. I just worry about how practical it would be, especially since everything should already be clean by the time it hits the shelves. And also a thanks to our county partners. The county member libraries have all agreed to stick very closely to the county quarantine protocols, which again does hold to a hard 7-day protocol. Nothing will move on the trucks. Nothing will be moved out of any of the libraries until such time as it has cleared that. Sam, you're right. It wouldn't hit the internal pages, but again, the paper isn't the problem. It's that wrapper that's the problem. The paper, it dies down pretty quickly because if you look at paper microscopically, it looks like about a jillion splinters, and it just doesn't allow for that fatty outer covering to hold. Stuff you never thought you'd learn in library school.
And now I'm unmuted. Christian, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a bunch of little things and then hopefully some discussion. And these are in no particular order. I want to note that County Executive McMahon today mentioned libraries, mentioned our how the city libraries would be opening. He also mentioned Beeville in his remarks, and that was about at the 25-minute mark. So if you go back through Facebook or on the website, it's around the 25-minute mark where he talks about libraries in the county. So I wanted to mention that. And I want to just reiterate that our suburban libraries, now we talk about them with a variety of different words, and I think at this point, a good word to use would be independent. You know, our independent suburban libraries really have their own pressures around this, including their board of trustees, their local governments, their community members. And so it's a complicated decision for them, and especially for those that are truly independent, the association libraries. And so the board yesterday received a list of our member independent libraries and when they're opening. Many of them are waiting for guidance. Yes, Christian.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt and get off of that topic. I had one very big call out that I really promised myself that I would do, and I wanted to make sure that I did it. Nick Stefano, our print guy, has absolutely killed it with the signage. The signage is so good that Kathleen presented this in a webinar yesterday or the day before, and about 700 people wanted these materials because these small libraries do not have incredibly talented, dedicated communications teams like we do. So what our team has done is they have made these things available to folks in a manner that they can drop in their logo and put in their particular information, but then just lift our signage to use across their institution, both for curbside and for safety within the building. I hate to throw out and break up the flow of the meeting, and I apologize. But this work is so out there, I needed Nick's name to be in the record, and I wanted that to be the case. I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Going back to our suburban libraries, you see the list, members of the board, it's in your email from yesterday, of when they're opening, many of them waiting for New York State guidance, or recognizing what phase libraries might fall into for their particular situation. So, they're in different spots than we are as the city libraries, as part of a county department. Some of them have upcoming budget votes. And so that's something that we should recognize and know that that is an uncomfortable situation for them in terms of being open or closed or being whatever in this odd time that we're going through, and now having a budget vote coming up in June. So if one of those libraries is a library that you are liaison to, you might want to reach out to them. You'll note that there's a couple libraries that Jen Milligan had no information for. And again, if you are their liaison, or if you have some inside email information or contact information, you might reach out to them and just say, hey, hope all is fine. It doesn't have to be an in-depth email, but just kind of check in with them. The other, I think the other thing maybe to put in emails to our suburban libraries, when you contact them, is just show support for them. Again, they're all in a difficult situation, as are our city libraries. So before we talk about the impact of COVID-19 on OCPL, the system, broadly speaking, I want to note that I've been reading again open meeting law and Governor Cuomo's executive orders, and following up on the fact that we're having online meetings and what the rules are for online meetings. And a couple things stood out to me more strongly since we've been doing this for longer. But making the Zoom recordings available on our website. Open Meeting Law asks that those recordings be made available. Practice is to make them available on the website. There's no length of time given in open meeting law for how long the recording should be available. My thought is, since they're cloud recordings, a year would be fine. We also have to make transcripts available, and I think Zoom will automatically create transcripts. So that's something that we can do for past meetings and any meetings going forward that we hold online. Right now in the governor's executive order, we can have telephone meetings through June 6th. I don't know if he'll extend that. My thought is that likely he will. And in June, we can see how things are progressing, what the executive orders at that point say, what practice is, and then decide if we want to do an in-person meeting or stick with Zoom. So that's something that we can discuss in June. So the thing I would really like to hear your thoughts on, the board thoughts on, is about how this pandemic is going to affect us long term. I'm sure it's something that we've been thinking about, and so I would really ask the board to open your microphones and think out loud about this topic. Ed, you want to start us off?
Well, I just wanted to say that a lot depends on what the budgetary impact is going to be, which we're going to, I guess, come to shortly with Mark. And maybe we're not quite sure what it's going to be, but it'd be hard for me not to foresee that there'll be some financial implication because of the, let's say, the depth of the financial impact on Onondaga County. And absent some federal or state aid, we could have a big financial challenge, which in turn will have a dramatic impact on operations. So I don't have an answer. I just have a very big question mark next to Mark's name about what we know so far.
Okay.
My first thought actually was
Tim, you're breaking up, or you're muted.
Tim, you're frozen.
am I? Okay, you know what? I'm going to shut off my camera. I've shut off video. Does that help at all?
It might.
Okay. Well, I was going to say that I'm concerned about funding, and if the county gets into another budget crunch like they have in the past, they may offer early retirement, and that's going to have an impact on the expertise that we have in our libraries.
Ryan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Ryan McMahon's already announced that there will be an early retirement plan. And so we do have a lot of senior people. So you're right. We could lose some very talented people.
Yeah, we saw a lot of talent walk out the door during the last early retirement incentive, and that's going to have an impact on our effectiveness going forward.
It's already having an impact on our effectiveness from a custodial and maintenance perspective.
I think the only thing about early retirement is that some people might not want to take early retirement. You know, it's kind of a catch. You know, are you financially able? And in an economic downturn, you might be hesitant to do that.
Is there a way to bring back retirees part-time? Is that legal?
It's legal, but it defeats the purpose. And so
I have
they frown on
83
it.
part-time staff outstanding as it is right now. I would bring them back at their rate of pay rather than try and pay a retiree at potentially top of the pay range based on their qualifications.
Okay.
Bob, I actually didn't hear your question. Can you just repeat it so I know what it was?
A lot of companies bring back their retirees on a part-time basis because of all the knowledge they have. I mean, 30, 40 years of experience walks out the door. And so they bring them back part-time to work on proposals or do a special.
That's
project.
okay. I understand the question now. Thank you.
That was all.
I was talking to a client today who asked about the status of a SAM grant that comes through DASNY. And the response was a link to something called the Budget Bulletin B1223, which somebody else might know about, Ed or Sam, but it provides for a hold on all discretionary local aid grants that come from the state. And it appears to go through 2021 until the hold is lifted. I don't have any more information about it or whether or not the library receives grants that are being held, but it certainly wasn't comforting to read.
DASNY is normally for capital costs, just with relation to personnel questions. It probably wouldn't relate there, but yeah, concerning nonetheless. All the budgetary stuff is concerning.
Good. Thanks, Ed.
He's rejoined. I had a thought. I mean, the one thing that Christian mentioned is just continued concern around staffing and ensuring that people are able to return as soon as possible, I think is really critical to thinking about how things reopen appropriately. The other thing is realistically, I'm probably not going to bring my kids to the library to do the kind of things that they've done for the next year and a half. And, I would love to. I would love to get this kid running around and playing, believe me. But that is, but I think it's a reality. And so what that means for what things look like, even after maybe technically everything's allowed to be open, it's just, I think, the comfort level. And then I think, Christian, you've brought this up, that may not be the same for everybody. And so what does that mean for certain communities versus others that, are relying on the library for certain access to information? And so that seems like something to think about at least.
So this is Babette. So I've had some connections with the school districts, and they're looking at how to reopen staggered classes, the whole thing. But just as Christian and Sam just said, we know we have certain populations that are waiting for the libraries open because they don't have any place else for their kids to go. They're lower income, they're essential workers. They've been home with their kids and they're overwhelmed right now. And they don't have, the kids are not logging in and learning. So they're looking forward to the libraries being open so their kids have someplace to go and something to do and someplace to learn. So my concern, and I think we talked about a little bit about this in the strategic planning meeting, is, what do we do with those families? Because I think if you're open, you're gonna be absolutely swamped.
We are.
Yeah,
We are.
there's no summer programming, there's no school. I mean, you're gonna be hit really hard.
No, it's gonna be Camp Library. You know what I mean? I mean, that's what it is every summer anyway. This year will be worse than others. How we deal with youth services is a very big deal for us right now. It's huge, I mean, for how many years have we been training kids to go and hug their children's librarian? I mean, you don't get to do that anymore, right? Sam, we are working very aggressively on summer programming. We're going to be doing some stuff like craft kits and that kind of stuff where you can actually come to the library, get an envelope, and then in that envelope there are crafts for different weeks. So you just break those out and you do those online. We're looking at some really good Zoom programming. We're looking at stuff that will be interactive programming virtually, not just, oh man, you're doubling up. It's the cuteness overload. So those are kind of some of the things that we're looking at. You're absolutely right though. I mean, like I did programming for Queens Library for years. It's going to be challenging for us to see what this looks like at the end. What this looks like 2 years from now. Really.
And one quick question. So Christian, are you on any of the school district committees are you talking at all to the school district?
I have not been invited onto those committees. I would be very happy to work with them. I know that Kathy has a lot of connections with the school and has been working with them. And I know that some of our librarians have been providing some content, I think in partnership with the schools, story time and that kind of thing. I don't have all the details on that. I am very happy to sit on whatever body will have me. But I have not been invited to anything at this time.
Okay, so I'm sending an email to Dean DeSantis, who's head of operations, and to
Great.
Jaime right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
So the thing I think about is what our libraries will look like after we have a vaccine. Knowing that until we have a vaccine, they're going to look very, very different than they do now. Probably limited services, different services. I shouldn't say limited, but different services with things being delivered in different ways. But then assuming that there is a vaccine, I wonder what that new normal will look like. Or will we be so used to doing services more virtually, more digitally, that in more dispersed fashion, that the space in the library gets repurposed in new and different ways?
I think that all things will be different. I mean, I think we're getting used to wearing masks. I think we're getting used to seeing people on the street wearing masks. I think we're getting used to giving each other space. I think we're getting used to being very distant to our neighbors, even when we're being friendly to them. And I think that that will continue. My concern, of course, is that once we have a vaccine, there will be anti-vaxxers. There will be people who do not get a vaccination or choose not to, or unable to access it. A concern that I have, and I've been speaking to Renee about this a great deal. She has a lot of thoughts about it and a lot of great work that she's already put into this. But as I drive around town, I see our homeless population, and God bless them, they are not keeping social distance. They're not wearing masks. And I am concerned about what happens once we put them together in the library. And they can have that contact together. I mean, they're already having the contact, but what happens when they start having contact outside of their community, which may or may not have the disease in it or the virus in it? So these are all things that are gonna impact our service. We'll get used to being concierge. People will get used to having the kind of pickup services that we have available to them. People will get used to virtual programming, and we'll hopefully get more out of it as we get better at it.
I would
Thinking
expect
long-
when this is,
Go ahead, Tim.
okay, sorry. I would expect when we're on the other side of this, that there will be a whole lot more use of electronic resources. I think people are going to get even more accustomed to borrowing materials that way. And I don't see any particular reason why that trend would reverse itself just because the pandemic is over. I think that'll probably continue.
Bob?
Yeah, to follow up on that, I think the lessons learned that we capture from this about ourselves and about these kind of events is just really important, that we sit down and have a soul-searching discussion about, you know, what happened and how do we get ready for the next one. The next one might be a tornado or a hurricane or another pandemic, but chances are, if not us, our children will see something like this, and it's the world we live in. And so I think, you know, the lessons learned here, and in the library as almost a center of resilience for our communities, that we keep operating, and we're going to try to be there for people like the libraries did with Hurricane Sandy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they functioned, and they gave people in some cases a place to sleep. And so I think that role is one we could grow into. But the lessons learned part, and the military is really good at this,
Mm-hmm.
sitting down and having a soul-searching discussion. What happened? How do we make sure this never happens again? And you know, when two ships collide at sea, or a Marine Corps platoon walks into an ambush, when they all get back, they have those kind of discussions. What did we miss? What happened?
Mm-hmm.
How do we make sure it never happens again? I think
so. Right now, after action reports are built into everything we're doing. It is a constant. All of our plans have circuit breakers built into them. If numbers start changing, if things don't work, if we are overwhelmed, I've been telling staff, you are not to adapt yourself to the machine. If there's anything in there where you say, oh, well, I'll get used to it, don't get used to it. Trash it, try something else, try something that is better. All of our plans, our staff are being encouraged to see as flexible and to have as much flexibility as possible, with the caveat that they will be reviewed by administration. I'm going to review everything. I have complete trust in everybody, but I'm going to review everything. Bob, I think you'll enjoy an analogy that I shared, and Jill's already heard this one because I put it out on Facebook last night. It is really hard to make use of the mentorship and connections and networks and contacts that I have made in this profession, because right now they're all irrelevant. Nobody knows what we're doing as well as we do right now. So what I've been telling people is, it's like I got my first general command right before World War I. I'm going back to the O Club. They're all talking about cavalry charges, and I'm huddled in the corner with a blanket over my shoulders trying to describe a machine gun, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we are right now. We are being very reactive, and all of our plans have flexibility and circuit breakers built into them. They are integral to the plan.
Yeah.
Christian, on that note, I have to just say, you used a term during our strategic planning subcommittee saying, here there be tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And I am actually using that as I'm doing a workshop out in Seattle virtually now, since I can't go. And that's the thing. I mean, we know that there are tigers now, but we don't know, are there also sea monsters and dragons? We just have no idea of what's on the other side of this. And the waves of this could be going on for quite some time.
They sure could. And if you're waiting to make a decision at this point, you're too late. You have to make a decision and start moving. Everybody has to do that.
Yeah.
I know that Rich needs to probably head out the door momentarily.
Rich, I love that painting. Thank you for sharing that painting every time. I love it.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, everyone. Are you all set with me now, Jill?
If you want to say something, you can. If you want to chime in, or if you want to run away screaming, you can do that too.
Well, I think it's been said, especially by Ginny, and thanking Christian for all his great work and your staff, and really done a spectacular job. What a great hire we made. So thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much. Please don't fire me. I just moved here with my family. Please don't fire me.
Never.
Thank you very much.
If they do, I'm not doing the search, so just know that before you take any action.
So, we do have this subcommittee that is trashing everything it's done so far in terms of strategic planning, starting from square one. And so, if for the board, if you look out 12 months, 18 months, what are your thoughts about OCPL? Not looking for answers, not looking for, not looking for something that will like shoot down or anything, but just where do you think we'll be in 12 months, 18 months?
I look forward to us thriving.
Yeah, I think we'll be thriving just in a different way than we're used to. I think we're used to, at least I'm used to measuring success in terms of how many people are in the building. That's not going to be such a good idea for the next year and a half. So we might have to find different metrics to measure our success, whether that's circulation, whether that's attendance at virtual events or something else. But I expect we'll be thriving, but in a way that I don't know how to define yet.
And Tim, you bring up a really good point about metrics, because when you do things online and those are archived, then your metrics can change dramatically. Bob?
that we may find ourselves in the fundraising business more than we've been historically out of sheer need. And I think we could rise to that occasion. But, you know, this board has a host of connections and relationships. And I mean, I think if we had to get into the fundraising of business a little bit, I think we could do it. I am convinced we could do it. And then, you know, that may be necessary if the budget picture is as bleak as some think it's going to be. So I think we just rise to the occasion. If we're not going to let this go down, and you know, and so we'll do everything in our power to fund. If we have to fundraise, we'll fundraise. We'll apply for grants and.
Bob, I think you're right. I think it's going to be hard to get. I think the ground is going to be real tough out there, though, because the landscape's going to be hard to squeeze a lot of philanthropic dollars that don't have to do with COVID and COVID relief. I mean, you're totally right, and I'm down for it, and I know I'm sure Kim is looking at that right now really hard. But just as a kind of not to kill the idea, but just to kind of put it in the back of your head, if you ain't tied to COVID, it's tough to get philanthropic money right now.
So this is Babette, and this is like the area that I live in. And actually, you'll be surprised that a lot of funders are looking beyond COVID. They're thinking about what life will be like. And this is my terminology. We won't be post-COVID, but we'll be post-crisis at some point. And so funders are beginning to really look at that. And actually, some organizations are hitting fundraising records. They're raising so much money now, it's not even funny. The other sad thing about this, though, is they're estimating about 55 to 60% of nonprofits will go out of business within the next 6 months.
Oh.
So I think we'll be thinking about what we will look like, Jill, in 12 to 18 months. I think we will look very different. I think there'll be a lot of social service agencies that will go down in our community. I most certainly think we will see more kids coming through. We might move more into that educational space than we've ever been before, and doing even more kind of like family literacy stuff. I'm not really sure, but I agree with you, Bob. I think we can move into that space. I think we'll have some opportunities because I think we will look very different. In some ways, very, very much the same, but in some ways very different. So, Christian, yeah, there's going to be some money out there. We'll have to just figure out where it is.
Awesome. I really appreciate your expertise and your expert opinion on that, Babette. Thank you. I did want to just, another call out for good work. The early childhood education stuff that we've been doing, the partnership and the work that we've been doing there seems to be unique in the country. So I know that people are modeling a lot of stuff and lifting a lot of stuff from that as well.
Just to comment on Bob Manning. Bob, you said you were pretty committed to the idea that we could raise money. Focal, as you just heard earlier, they have a desperate need to raise money to fund the authors, which in turn enables them to give money to us. So if you've got thoughts on that, you should be putting them forward to Kim.
Okay, I'd be glad to. And one other point, my financial planner told me, well, required minimum distributions are no longer mandatory, they are optional. So you can still give money to a charity through your required minimum, they're not eliminated. And if you've been doing that in the past, you can continue it. It's optional, but no longer mandatory. But it's a nice way to give money tax-free if you're so inclined.
I just want to add, and I know, because I actually have to get off the phone myself in a little bit. So, and I know I was on the agenda for the strategic planning piece. We had talked about some of the plans that Kristen had mentioned. So I've been actually stockpiling them, and I'm just going to put them in a Google Drive and send it because I know you haven't had time to do the Yammer. So I've been compiling some things, no worries. But I've been thinking about almost like this, I've been seeing this thing called a strategic plan roadmap. And I'm thinking about almost designing something like that for us. So it's not necessarily a plan, but just a kind of a roadmap for us to be thinking about where we want to go in terms of what we might want to see in 12 to 18 months or 3 years, whatever this work plan may be, with some very loose goals and objectives and some time frames with nothing written in stone because we don't know. We have to be very agile I'm thinking in the next 12 to 18 months.
Babette, thanks for that. You know, I like the word agile as something that we'll have to do. And I think over the next year, year and a half, this could be an interesting point in time for how we think about cooperating across our all the libraries in Onondaga County, how we think about you know, the MOU, and I don't know what stage that is at, but you know, coming out of this crisis and then rethinking about the MOU is something that I'm sure Ed will be working on. I think this could be just a new era of cooperation, or yeah, a new era of cooperation, a new era of kind of understanding our resources across the county, a new era of finding the best ways of working together.
I want to give actually a shout out to Meg on that. Meg's board has agreed to tie their reopening plan to ours, and that they will move forward as we move forward, which I was really touched by and really appreciated. Again, every library has to do its own thing and what is right for them, but Meg's vote of confidence in our plan that way meant a lot to me, and I really think it's worth commenting too.
Any other thoughts for the board? I guess we should look at the budget and hear from Mark. Hearing no additional thoughts from the board, Mark. Oh, there you are. Feel free to go ahead, Mark.
Hey, hello, everybody. The financial, as you know, the financials don't look too good for the county overall. And as I mentioned last board meeting, they've initiated several cost-cutting measures across the county to address the $100 million shortfall that they're seeing. Those things being the retirement incentive, the staffing cuts, and the hiring freeze. And also they've instituted a couple of rounds of austerity measures where they've gone into departments and encumbered funds that the departments can't spend. We have not, as of yesterday, I verified that we have not seen any austerity measures instituted in our budget. So mainly our budget items are the cut of the part-time staff, and they have frozen hiring. So, and I'll talk about that in the forecast and work that in there. And as it relates to the retirement, I have not received any figures yet as it relates to how many individuals are looking at taking advantage of the early retirement. So I hope to know more about that next board meeting. But as of now, I don't have any figures as far as what total number of people are planning to take that package. But as you look at our budget, it's pretty, there's nothing too glaring. The rolled up page, everything is pretty much in line with where it should be at this point in time. It's basically first 4 months of the year, about 33% of the year gone. The only account, and it makes sense, we've spent a little extra in supplies and materials. And that's mainly due to we've ordered about $21,000 in PPE type material, like breath guards, stanchions, gloves, and hand sanitizer, masks. And so that material is all, and I want to give a big shout out to Sharon Rohrer, who's been dumping in tons of recs in the system. And we've been following that stuff up is it's very difficult when you order large items through the county over $1,000. It puts you in situations where you have to bid the stuff out. So reason a lot of this stuff you may be wondering why it's taking so long. When we order large orders, we then have to wait for the purchasing department to bid the stuff out for a week or so, and then we select the appropriate vendor, then the order is dispatched. So orders typically go through 3 offices before they reach purchase order status. They go through FinOps, comptroller, then purchasing. So Sharon and I have been watching that stuff very closely, but I just wanted to shout her out. And I'll lead from that right over to the forecast. And that should be in your packet as well. And as I mentioned, what they've done, I've been in communication pretty much on a daily basis with our Division of Management and Budget liaison, Aaron Kohler, and keeping him aware. And he's been, questioning when he needs to get a better sense of our budget. We forecasted at the end of this Q1 that we would come in with a savings of about 1.2 million based on the assumptions in this forecast. That's obviously not set in stone as we move forward. We'll continue to reevaluate this. The bulk of our savings comes from the salaries lines, both in the part-time and the full-time lines. We have a number of vacant positions that don't have approved VRRs yet. So we looked at the way they took that was they looked at those as being saved for the rest of the year. That's not to say we can't fill those positions, but they would have to have some higher level discussions to allow us to do so. So this forecast takes those into consideration as being savings. And that was a little over $500,000 there. The part-time employees, we budgeted a little over $1 million for those. We spent $225,000 in the first quarter. Aaron and I kind of forecasted an additional $250,000 to bring us to 474 at the end of the year. That would equate to about bringing the full part-time staff we had back for the last quarter of the year. So October, November, December, or if we brought half of them back, at the beginning of the third quarter. But we made some assumptions there, and it was taken. We also looked at the maintenance utilities line, and we looked at some utilities savings that we forecasted based on lower natural gas prices and lower usage patterns. So that's about $18,500 right there. In our professional services line, we forecasted a savings of almost $96,000, because obviously we've been closed for a couple of months and we have not used the 3 security vendors that we typically use. So based on that alone, we were forecasting that savings. That being said, some of that will probably be eroded when we open up with curbside, because we'll be revamping security for that service, and the security for that service would be a little more expensive than normal. So training and travel, obviously people won't be allowed to go to a lot of the trainings that they were going to last year. So we did factor in some savings there, and it may be even a little more than what we anticipated there. So we've got $3,000 there. That totals 1.2 million when you add all those items up. So I think the way the county's viewing us right now is that being sufficient. They have not instituted any austerity measures in our budget. And I know for a fact that they've done 2 rounds of it in other departments. So I've been talking to some colleagues in some of the other departments, and they shared that with me, that they've been hit with 2 rounds of it. I don't think there are any plans to do that to the library. On the revenue side, we forecasted a possible reduction in state aid based on the things we were hearing from the state. We don't anticipate that happening, but to be on the safe side, we did put that in our forecast just in case it happened. And we looked at potential, we know we won't be getting fee revenue or any merchandise revenue during the time we're down. So that was 134,000 reduction in revenue going against the 1.2 million. So we still have over $1 million in identified potential savings in our budget based on this forecast. And we'll continue to look at this every month as we learn more moving forward. Any questions on the forecast?
Can I just ask quickly, reimbursement for COVID-related expenses, is that on the library to do, or is it the county that takes that on?
Reimbursement for?
Like, I know FEMA reimburses buying PPE, things like that. So is that something that the library will ultimately do, or is that the county that does that?
I believe the county's doing it because they have asked us to identify everything that we put in related to COVID. We've been earmarking it as such. And I believe they're doing that at the county level.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, how much of the $1.2 million is, or $1 million net, is related to the city operation?
I'll have to split out those salary figures and get that to you. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Anything else from Mark, from the board?
I also wanted to briefly mention, we will be going to Ledge Committee next month to renew our local laws that allow us to enter into lease agreements with the Southwest Community Center and the Northeast Community Center. Those local laws expired, and we've been kind of operating under expired laws. So formality, but just letting you know.
Hey, Mark, as this unfolds, keep us informed, as to what's going on.
Will do.
Thank you, Mark.
So we have run over by about 5 minutes, and I want to be mindful of time. Jen Milligan provided something ahead for us. So thank you, Jen, for that. I'm assuming there's nothing from the MOU committee. Looking at Ed, he can nod yes or no.
Charge methodology is still the issue, and we're waiting to hear back from the members. I don't know whether either Amanda Schiavulli or Christians have any conversation prior to COVID, but I doubt that there's anything moving at the moment. And it'll probably be a while before we ever get back together. But really, we're waiting on the members to say, we had a menu, they had a menu of different ways to do the chargeback, and we haven't agreed to anything, but we expect them to at least come up with a preferred option.
Just to reiterate on some of what you're saying, yes, we had meetings on that. The MOU committee had parked the MOU discussions while we gathered more information. That was based on the idea that we would be giving people essentially a more itemized breakdown of what it is that they're getting out of their membership, and that they are actually getting a lot out of their membership. And I think that that's been proven true even throughout this process, even throughout the fact that, while we've been closed for the last couple of months. I believe that actually the committee was waiting on us on that, Ed, and that's why I wanted to jump in. I believe that they were waiting on me and my team to prepare a document that would have a better breakout of what it is that they're actually getting. That document has not been prepared due to exigencies of time and space, and we'll get back on that. My guess would probably be in about a month and a half is probably when we're going to have our decks cleared enough to really look at that.
Christian, thank you. Ed, thank you. I know that there's no government relations report, no finance committee report, no board management report. Babette has already talked about strategic planning. I think I think Christian probably has told us what we need to know about the city libraries. I don't know if there's I don't remember a written report on city libraries.
I thought there was a written report.
Was there a written report? Okay, so we
Yeah,
have.
one thing I would note that I think was consequential, Renee was able to scour up 10 of the backpacks and deliver them
Yes.
to some city school kids, which was great.
Yeah, I remember that from the report. Thank you. So with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Tim, don't do a freeze.
So moved.
Anybody want a second?
Me, Babette, a second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All, thank you very much for a lively meeting. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank
Christian,
you for your
thank you.
support.
Thank
Staff,
you,
thank
Christian.
you.
Bye, Sam and those
Stay well.
beautiful babies.
Bye.
Bye, member libraries. Bye, independent libraries. Bye,
everybody.
suburban
Bye.
libraries.
Good night, John Boy.
Thanks,
Good night,
everybody.
Gracie.